One of the most important topics in any SAP project is withholding taxes, mainly because it is a legal requirement and the legal compliance is always a very high priority. Also, it is more complicated than value-added taxes that everyone understands, but when it comes to withholding taxes, many people do not really understand what are withholding taxes and what is the accounting impact. Why do we need withholding taxes and why do they exist in some countries and they don't exist at all in other countries? I have done full SAP projects where I didn't have to configure withholding taxes at all. And in other projects, I had 5 or 6 different types of withholding taxes. So I have decided to start this new playlist that I call Taxes and Withholding Taxes in SAP S4HANA, where I'm going to explain different concepts related to taxes and withholding taxes, the accounting entries related, the different legal requirements, how this can be used in SAP S4HANA, and also how this can be configured with demos on different processes where we have withholding taxes. And I'm creating this playlist for SAP consultants and also for accountants and tax experts who would like to learn how things work in SAP S4HANA. This playlist is also useful to anyone else interested in SAP projects. Now, let's start with a quick introduction into withholding taxes. A withholding tax is an amount that we have to withhold from the payment to our supplier, and we have to submit this amount to the tax authorities. For example, we have to pay our supplier 10,000 euros for some services, and we have a 5% withholding tax. Instead of paying 10,000 euros, we are going to pay the supplier only 9,500 euros, and we are going to withhold 500 euros as a liability in our books, and we are going to submit this to the tax authorities later. This is the basic concept, but there are a lot of variations, a lot of different accounting entries. The calculation of the withholding tax can be different based on different things. If there is value-added tax and withholding tax in the same accounting entry, then some countries are going to calculate the withholding tax on the amount of the service plus the taxes. Some other countries are going to calculate the withholding tax on the net of the services only without any taxes. Sometimes the withholding tax is paid by the company that is buying the service. Some other times that the withholding tax is paid by the supplier, so we deduct it from the supplier payment, and so on. So there are a lot of variations, and the withholding tax can cover a lot of legal business requirements in accounting. There are many reasons why withholding taxes exist in different countries. The main reasons are, first of all, this gives a more frequent income to the government. We all know that different companies use value-added taxes, which we apply to different invoices for our purchases and sales. And then we prepare a tax report at the end of every period. This can be 3 months or a year. And then we submit this to the government to calculate the tax liability that we have to pay later. This is not very frequent, but withholding taxes is very frequent because it applies immediately either at the time of the invoice or at the time of the payment as a liability. So it is a more frequent income source to the government. The second reason is tax audit and compliance. When we deduct an amount from the payment that we have to pay to our supplier, and we submit this amount as a withholding tax to the tax administration in the name of our supplier, then the tax administration knows that we have bought something from the supplier, we have paid money, we have received some invoices. Now imagine this supplier tries to evade taxes by not declaring all of the activities or not declaring some invoices, then it will be very easy to the tax administration to find out that this supplier is trying to evade taxes. So withholding taxes is a very strong mechanism for tax audit and compliance. A third reason that I find very interesting is that withholding taxes is a way for non-resident companies to pay taxes in the countries where they provide services. For example, I am a foreign company providing services in France. I am not registered in France, and I'm not registered with the tax administration in France, so I do not have to submit any value-added taxes there. But if France applies withholding taxes, then my clients who are in France are going to withhold a part of the payment that they make to me, and this part is going to be submitted to the French tax administration. So this way, France has applied taxes to me even though I am not registered there. These are only some of the reasons why withholding taxes exist, to give you an idea on how things work. But there are also many other reasons because, as we said, withholding taxes are local legal requirements, so they are different in each country and they can be used for a lot of things. For example, in Italy, withholding taxes can be used to submit social contributions to the government when we pay sales agents. It's just one example. In different countries, you are going to find many other examples. Now that we understand the definition of withholding taxes and why they exist, let's look into the two events that trigger the liability of the withholding tax to the tax administration. So after one of these two events, we have to submit withholding taxes to the government. The first event is supplier invoicing, and the second is supplier payment. For each kind of withholding tax, we have to decide whether this withholding tax is due when we receive the supplier invoice or this withholding tax is due when we actually pay the supplier. For example, for a withholding tax that is due at the supplier invoice, when we receive the supplier invoice, the accounting entry is going to recognize the withholding tax liability. So if we look into our example where we are buying a service from a supplier for 10,000 euros, then our debit is going to be debit expense for 10,000 euros. And our credit will be a credit to the supplier for only 9,500. And then we have a credit to a withholding tax liability account for 500. This is our 5% withholding tax that we have to submit to the government. So we have recognized our withholding tax when we receive the supplier invoice. But if, on the other hand, we have a withholding tax that is due upon payment to the supplier, then our supplier invoice will have a very regular accounting entry, which is a debit to the expense account 10,000 and a credit to the supplier account for 10,000. No withholding taxes yet. But when we pay the supplier, then we are going to recognize our withholding tax. So the accounting entry for the payment is going to be a debit to the supplier for 10,000 because we have to close the supplier account. So we have a debit to the supplier 10,000. We have a credit to our bank for 9,500 only. And then we have a withholding tax liability on credit for 500. And here we have recognized our withholding tax liability that we have to submit to the tax administration in the next step. So a withholding tax can either be due on supplier invoice or on supplier payment. Another very important aspect of withholding taxes is the withholding tax calculation base. So for example, if we have in the same invoice value-added taxes and withholding taxes. So we are buying something from our supplier for 10,000. So we have an expense debit for 10,000. And then we have a value-added tax of 10%. So the total now is 11,000. Are we going to apply our withholding tax percentage only to 10,000 or to 11,000? The answer depends on each country and in each kind of withholding tax. So there is always the question of what is my withholding tax calculation base? Whenever we face any withholding tax requirement, we have to understand this as a part of the legal requirements in each country. Let's review quickly where we are before we move to the next aspect. We have seen what is the definition of withholding taxes, why they exist, the two events when withholding taxes are due to the tax administration, the withholding tax calculation base, and now one more aspect is who is going to pay the withholding tax. In some cases, the withholding tax is paid by the supplier, so we deduct it from the supplier and we submit it to the government. And in other cases, the withholding taxes is paid by us, by the company or by the client. To understand what this means, let's look again into our example. And let's assume that our withholding tax is due on the supplier invoice. So when we receive the supplier invoice, our accounting entry is going to be a debit to the expense account for 10,000. And then on the credit side, we can have different cases. The first case is we have a credit to our supplier for 9,500 and a credit to our withholding tax payable account for 500. This is the case that we explained before. In this case, the supplier is the one paying the withholding tax because instead of paying the supplier 10,000, we are only paying him 9,500 and we are submitting the 500 to the tax administration in the name of the supplier. The second case is we have a debit to the expense account for 10,000 and we have a credit to the supplier for 10,000. Then we add two other lines. we have a debit to an expense account, maybe a withholding tax expense, you can call it anything, for 500, and we have a credit to the withholding tax payable account for 500. In this case, the supplier received the full 10,000 and the 500 withholding tax is paid by us, by the client. So this is the second case. Whenever we receive a requirement for withholding tax, we have to understand, is this withholding tax to be paid by the supplier or is it to be paid by us? These are some of the most important aspects for withholding taxes, but there are also other aspects. There is no way I can cover all of them in an introduction video. So when we get into the different legal requirements related to withholding taxes, we're going to see different other aspects, such as the maximum amount that can be withheld from a supplier, or the minimum amount that applies to a withholding tax, and the many more aspects that can be needed for local and legal requirements, and that can be covered by SAP S/4HANA. In SAP, we have two solutions for withholding tax. We have the withholding taxes and the extended withholding taxes. And between these two solutions, we can cover the different requirements. Keep following the taxes and withholding taxes in SAP S/4HANA playlist. And as usual, there will be some member exclusive videos in this playlist. Anyone can see the title of the video, but if you try to watch the video, it is only accessible to the channel members. So if you would like to support this effort and to get access to the member exclusive videos in the playlist and in the other playlists, then you can check the channel membership program, which will allow you to participate in the effort financially. So you pay a subscription and in return, you get access to the member exclusive videos and different other perks that I have on the channel. So you can get access to member exclusive documents. You can also get access to a private Slack channel where you can chat with me and the other community members and so on. I will let you check that channel membership program on YouTube. Go to www.youtube.com/@abdullahgalal/join to see all the details. To follow the playlist, there are two ways. Either you can follow the playlist on the YouTube channel, like any other playlist, or you can also go to my website, www.galalacademy.com/courses, and there you are going to find a course map for the taxes and withholding taxes, same as I did with the SAP configuration from zero. So this course map is a diagram that has all the different videos that are released and that will be released in this playlist in the future. And if you click on any box, it will take you directly to the video on YouTube. This diagram is going to include the public videos, the member exclusive videos, and also other references, because I can add different boxes where I leave links to different SAP help pages or to different related videos that are interesting and that can relate to the topic. So I really recommend that you follow the playlist through my website, www.galalacademy.com/courses. You are going to find this playlist and also many other playlists from the channel. And while you are on the website, you can also check my SAP S/4HANA Access. Anyone can subscribe to the same SAP S/4HANA system that I use in these demos. So you can check my configuration and you can also test everything on your own. You have full access to configure anything you want and test anything you want. Go to galalacademy.com/SAP Access and you'll find all the details. Let me know what you think about this playlist in the comments on YouTube. Also, if you want me to include anything in this playlist, then now is the time. Leave me a comment with what you want me to include in this playlist. If you have any specific local requirements, legal requirements, things that you have seen in SAP projects, then please leave me a comment with these, and I'm going to do my best to include everything I can in this playlist so it can be a real reference to anyone who is going to an SAP project, either an accountant who has an SAP project or an SAP finance and controlling consultant who is going to implement withholding taxes. So leave me all your recommendations in the comments. Also, I would really appreciate it if you subscribe to the YouTube channel and share the videos with your connections. It's not easy to create such a technical content, and I do not have a lot of audience because my content is very technical and is very targeted to the SAP community. So please share the videos, help spread the word. Thank you for watching, and I will see you again soon.